Welcome to Waterloo State Recreation Area. Waterloo Recreation Area is huge. It's more than 20,000 acres, and there's just a lot going on here. It's mostly contiguous. It kind of spans two counties, Jackson and Washtenaw, but the way the park was sort of developed has a pretty interesting history. It was, mostly Native American land originally. Then the white settlers came in and tried to farm the land, but they weren't able to make a good go of it because the land itself just wasn't the right conditions. And so not only were the farms failing, but then after the Great Depression hit, this whole area kind of became not really profitable for the people who lived here. So the federal government originally purchased a large portions of those farms. And then eventually, after the CCC came in and built a lot of and redeveloped a lot of the area, they deeded it over to the state of Michigan to become park property. And so that's kind of how we got to the Waterloo Recreation Area. And over the years, they've been able to add additional parcels of lands as different families have sold off their remaining private acreage. But it just leaves a lot of land mass here, different lakes and trails and all sorts of ecological things to see and do within that 20,000 acres.
Yeah, it's really hard to kind of give an overview of this park. We're seeing bits and pieces while we're here and sharing it on this video, but it really is something you need to see for yourself and check out. I mean, just looking at the list here, we said it's 20,000 acres. It has 5 campgrounds. There's 21 lakes in this area ponds, here. Yeah. There's different numbers that we're seeing in places, but it's probably around 50 miles worth of trails. Yep. For hiking. And then there's bridle trails and there's 18 miles of mountain biking trails. Just a lot to see and do here. And in addition to the 20,000 acres of Waterloo, it extends so far out that on the east, it borders the Pinckney State Recreation Area, which we'll get to in another video. And that's on the east. And then on the west, there's an Audubon natural area that they have set up too that's not part of the state park. And so if you wanted to really come down and explore this area of mid-lower Michigan, there's a lot to do here and spend some time.
We just got done visiting the Gerald Discovery Center here at Waterloo Recreation Area. And it was really cool. There's a lot to see and do. They've got a number of different displays of rock and geological formations, the different types of trees, some animals, and just a lot to learn about not only the specific history of Waterloo, but the general Michigan, the region of this area and the whole state as well.
Yeah, it'd be a great spot if you have little kids, especially for families to go in and kind of learn about the different geology and lots of different wildlife and things, both in this area at Waterloo, but also around the state. And so I thought it was really well done. It was a neat place to just kind of hang out and spend some time for a while and learn something.
Right. Even the little kids activity area, we had a lot of fun just like flipping up the things and seeing what the answers were, looking at the different rocks. They actually have a mastodon display because they have found fossils in this area from the mastodon. So I think that was really cool. One of my favorite parts was they've got a couple live exhibits with a box turtle, a couple snakes, sea lampreys. Those are the really nasty things that are killing the fish, but they've got a couple on display. And the pond scum. They just have a bucket. Funny as it sounds, they just got a big bucket where they've dipped into one of the local ponds here, and you can see what's going on in there. And the more you stand and stare and just look into the water, all the little creepy crawlies and living things that you see that you just kind of forget and don't realize are out in the ponds, but they're what's contributing to the life cycle and the ecosystems.
Yeah, and the Discovery Center is open every day.
Yeah.
So it's here if you want it. It'd be a great spot, especially if the weather's a little bit iffy and you're camping with your family and need somewhere to just kind of go and kill some time. You can spend a lot of time in there and have a good time with it.
So we spent the night at Sugarloaf Lake Campground, and this is a really nice little campground. It's got 130 odd sites, I believe. Most of them are 2030 amp. Most of them are like grassy dirt sites, but they do have a few paved sites that they consider handicap accessible. So I think that's really cool. And then there's also a handful that have 50 amp. So kind of depending on your rig or your needs, you got a little bit of variety here. No water, sewer hookup, but it's a traditional modern state campground with some mature trees and a little bit of just, general campground feel, I think.
Yeah, look at the online reservation system and check out the pictures. We did that before we booked a site. Some of the sites along the outside of the campground are up against some woods. There's no direct access to the lake from any of the sites.
No.
But you do have it on the other side of the woods in some places. Some of those, though, are less level. We had a site last night. We're in number 70. We actually ended up pulling the van in sideways because if you backed it in, it was kind of unlevel. It was
going to be weird, yeah.
So we just backed it in. It's an advantage to a Class B RV, I guess. But keep that in mind when you're doing it. Sugarloaf is one of 5 different campgrounds at Waterloo because this is a huge recreation area. But in addition to just having 5 different campgrounds, they're all very different. There's modern, there's rustic, there's some that are backpacking.
Yeah, hike-in only. So
hike-in only, take your tent and go and join the backwoods. So there's enough land here to do that.
Yeah, and I believe there's a couple that are first come, first serve because there is the Waterloo Pinckney Trail. It's about 30 to 40 miles that runs through the trail system here. I mean, it runs through the park system. And so people will backpack and hike that, and they will come upon one of those sites and need a place to stay for the night. So there are a few that are kind of non-reservable in advance. I think you can reserve them, but they leave a few sites open for those hike-throughs.
Yep, for first come, first serve. So you can't book them ahead of time. But it's just one of those things where you get online and look at the campgrounds, look at the campsites. There's a lot of options.
Yeah.
So just take your time and review and get what you need.
So we just came from Coffee and Donuts with the Campground Hosts. That's something that they usually do Saturday and Sunday mornings when they know there's people in the camp. It's just sort of a way to introduce people to each other in the camp.
Yeah, they're a good resource. It's nice they find people that are willing to volunteer and be hosts. I think these folks said they did a 1-month commitment at a time here. Yep. At Sugarloaf, which is in Waterloo Recreation Area. And, you know, the hosts get a campsite, and that's a nice benefit for them. But they're responsible for making sure there's activities to do and hosting people, wander around, make sure they're feeling welcome. And they're usually a really good source of information. So if you're not familiar with an area or how to get from one place to another, check with your camp host because they're here long enough that they kind of know the ins and outs of an area. They know tips and tricks for getting places and also things to see that you might not have thought of. So always a good idea to check in with your camp host.
Yeah, the hosts that are here this time, they said they've been doing this for about 7 years. So they are definitely a good wealth of information because they've been here long enough to really know what's going on, especially in a park that's this large. They can tell you the different little lakes to go to, the different trails to see. And, you know, they know everybody's name. As everybody was pulling out today, they're waving and calling their names. So we definitely found that this particular campground, people have been coming to for 20, 30 years, and they really all like it and know each other, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, people get to know an area and they kind of settle into it. And, you know, we're big on boondocking. We've done that for years. And, you know, when you're in a state park campground, you have neighbors. So if you're going to have neighbors, you might as well get to know them and have some fun. We stood at a campfire last night with our neighbors that are right next door to us, and that was nice to get to know them and meet people. And this morning we went and had coffee and donuts with the camp hosts and their guests. So you know, you're surrounded by people. Take advantage of it. Get to know them. Maybe you'll learn something new and they'll learn something about you. And it was just a nice morning.
Yeah. One of the cool things here at Waterloo is all the trails. And when you're standing around at the Discovery Center, there's at least 5 different trails that you can pick up just from the parking lot area. And they range anywhere from like 1.5 miles total to I think up to 4 or 5 miles. One is an out and back and the rest are loops. But they take you through a variety of terrain, a variety of sort of flora and fauna. So you've got more of a fern bog feel to a forest feel and kind of a little bit of everything in between.
Yeah, and we're on the bog trail is what we're on. And this is, I think, 1.5 miles out and back.
Yep.
And it's pretty nice. I mean, it's relatively level. It's got boardwalks in certain places to help you get over the sort of the more bog or marshy area. And then it ends at it ends at the bog. Imagine that. The bog trail ends at the bog. But it was really cool. This is a very different sort of environment than you see in some other places. So I'm glad we did this one. And you said there was a recommendation from somebody to take this trail.
Yeah, I'd seen online, there's a couple of different websites specifically related to trails that people, not specifically for the state park, but just trail websites that you can go to get a feel for conditions and terrain and all different things. And so I found a recommendation on there that if you only have time for one of the trails from the Discovery Center to do the bog trail, because it takes you through a variety of different woodland areas. So you go through a little bit of a hardwood forest, and then you end up in the marshy bog area. So you get a little bit of different feel in just that one trail system.
Well, and I think probably the trails that they have marked out from the Discovery Center help give you a taste of what's here, because Waterloo State Recreation Area has about 50 miles worth of trails.
At least.
It's a crazy amount of trails to explore here. But if you just want to do kind of an easier in and out hike from the Discovery Center, that's a great way to kind of get a taste of what's out here.
Yep. This would be a good one for kids. It's a pretty much a crushed gravel trail with, again, those boardwalks and a little bit of a hill at one point, but more like an incline. So it's I don't think it's handicap accessible particularly, but it's definitely be a good one for families.
Yeah, and there's plenty of stuff here for kids to just kind of look at and watch for things in the different areas as you're walking through. So
yep, they've got, they do have informational signs along the way that tell you about the different things, like the different kinds of ferns, the different kinds of trees, what a bog is, what a hardwood forest is. So there's definitely educational opportunities along the way. One of the big draws here at the Waterloo Recreation Area is the DTE Energy Foundation Trail. While primarily designed as a mountain biking trail, it is open to hikers as well. There are 3 different loops, 2 5-mile loops and an 8-mile loop, or give or take a little bit. And it depends on the day of the week which direction you travel. So you'll have to look at the signs to know whether you go clockwise or counterclockwise. And the thing to remember is if you're hiking it, you actually go opposite of that so that you are always facing the mountain bikers so that they can see you and you can see them as they come around the corner. The 3 loops vary in degrees of difficulty, so if you want easy or more difficult, depending on the type of bike you have or how many jumps or loops or things that you want to do. But it seems to be a pretty popular place, and as one of the bikers here that was getting ready said, on some weekends you will find both parking lots completely packed. So get here early or different times of the day, or if you can come here after work, but this definitely seems to be a pretty popular place.
This trail system is a joint effort between the DTE Energy Foundation and the Department of Natural Resources. And it's great that they've been able to put this together. It started back in 2016 when the DTE Energy Foundation gave $250,000 as seed money to get this all started out here. And then they've helped build it all along. You said they have 3 loops open. Mm-hmm. There's supposed to be 5 loops when they're all done. And they said they're going to be opening one in 2019 and they're planning to open one in 2020. Now, they said that there's supposed to be more than 20 miles, and from what we could tell, there's already about 18 miles. Right, so yeah. I don't know how much more they're going to add, but they might be able to add some smaller loops or connectors or something. It's just a great experience. I think it's an awesome place to come if you're a mountain biker. If you're hiking, I didn't feel as comfortable hiking in on the trails, even going in the opposite direction, because they're pretty narrow in some places, and the mountain bikers were surprisingly quiet.
Yeah, they are.
If they come up around the corner, you don't necessarily see them, or you don't hear them before you see them. So if you do come out here and hike, just make sure you're keeping your eyes open and you're aware. Now, we were reading on one of the signs, this is open year round, right? It's open for winter.
It is. There is winter for snowshoeing. It is groomed for both the mountain biking, cross-country skiing, and snowshoeing. But they do ask that you pay attention to the trail conditions. So if you're leaving deep tracks more than an inch, they advise you to stay off of it. But the same goes for the for the spring and fall seasons as well. If it's really muddy, they will actually post online that the trails are closed because they don't want you tearing up the trail system.
Yeah, that's really interesting too, because this is one of the few trails I've seen where you can go online and they'll give you trail conditions. Someone's out here checking on it and they will let you know, and they do shut them down periodically because they don't want you out here if it's going to really tear things up. They want to be able to maintain this and make sure everybody gets to enjoy it for many years to come. So it's a good opportunity to get out and enjoy some fun mountain biking, I think.
Yeah, for sure, the mountain biking. Our bikes aren't quite set up for that. We've talked about it. We've tried it. It's, we're kind of hybrid. So I don't know if I'd put my bike out on this. But also, we did want to mention that if you are going to hike it, because it does say it's open to hiking, you have to commit, though, to the entire loop because of that one-way backwards experience. So we thought we were going to head out, and then all of a sudden we realized that wait, if we didn't want to do 5 miles, we only want to do like a mile, and we'd have to go the wrong way on the track. So if you're going to go out and hike it, just make sure that you are prepared to do the entire loop. So you've got your provisions, food, water, bug spray, hat, whatever you've got if you're going to go out there and do it. But there's a lot of people out here today, and I think it's really cool this is being used so much.
Yeah, they look like they're having a lot of fun.
There's definitely a lot of wildlife around here, specifically the chipmunks, who are everywhere, and they seem to be very people friendly, so you'll get used to those. But just there's river otters, there's muskrat, there's sandhill cranes. In the fall, they migrate through here, and there's a whole separate trail section and driving thing that you can take to look for them when they come here to migrate. And I think if you stop in the Discovery Center, you can kind of pick up a list of all the different wildlife that you might see around here, just because there's, again, with 20,000 acres, there's just a vast amount of land with different habitats for different things.
Yeah, there's a ton of birds. This is known, birders come out with their binoculars and watch for all the different birds that are here. And the Discovery Center keeps track of what people have been seeing.
Any time of the year, I think this would be a great place. As you know us, we like to go in the winter, and I would love to come down here and snowshoe because they say the lakes do freeze, and so you can get out into different places that you wouldn't normally other times of the year. They specifically said most people come here in the summer, but they highly recommend fall and winter too. And even in the spring, when the new babies and the tadpoles and everything's starting to hatch and come out and the flowers are gorgeous. So this is definitely a 4-season park, and you should visit it in all 4 seasons.
Yeah, the campgrounds are not open all year, but the park is open all year. So definitely an opportunity to come down here. This is a place I would put on your list to come down and spend some time and explore if you can. There is a ton of opportunity to do different things here at Waterloo State Recreation Area. So definitely put it on your list.
Keep on trekking.
And we'll see you out there.
In some cases, a lot of pockets of areas where they were able to conserve and protect and add into the park system. But that means that of those 20,000 acres, you've got a lot of land to cover and a lot to see and do here.
I'm pretty sure B's going to get picked up on it.
Oh, you think so?
Sound.
Oh. Okay. Well, Mr. B.